Hey everybody, it's Gabe coming from sunny Sioux Falls, South Dakota today. It's absolutely beautiful out, which is great. Get a little sunlight here in the Four Season room. But today I am going to talk about transitioning from that full-time job with the side hustle you got going into being self-employed. And I'm going to basically, like I always do, tell a quick little story. And the story goes like this. A client of mine by the name of Lloyd, we'll call him Lloyd, came to me and said, okay, I'm ready. I think I'm ready to go, but I'm kind of scared. I don't want to hurt my family situation, and I want to make sure I do this right. I said, all right, Lloyd, that's all right. I've got 7 steps that we're going to walk through, make sure you're all set up and ready to go so that you are able to make this transition, be comfortable with what you're doing, and know that your family's still going to be okay. So here we go. The 7 steps are cash flow, savings, retirement, risk management, taxes, legal, and then what I call support system or mentor. And so what we basically did is, and I created a worksheet for this, so you can actually go to GabeNelsonFinancial.com. You can go to the resources page, download the guide that kind of walks you through this so that it'll make this even easier for you. But we sat down and we dug through everything for Lloyd. And we got an understanding of first what his cash flow was. Get an idea, what is his next 12 months cash flow? Based upon the side hustle he's got going, on the consulting piece he's got rolling, what type of income is he expecting to have based upon what he's been doing? And then what do we think it could do if, in fact, he spends all of his days just working on that to crank it up a little bit? We then got an understanding of what we thought his expenses were going to be, what his personal expenses are, as well as his business expenses, so that we could get a little bit of an idea what his revenues and what his expenses were going to be to make sure that he was going to be okay and his family was going to be all right. Next thing we did was we took a look at his savings. We got an understanding is, does he truly have 6 to 12 months of living expenses set aside to make this transition in case something goes wrong, kind of like what's happening right now with the coronavirus situation. There's literally businesses that are shutting down. There are consultants that are having to go virtual. There's all kinds of things that are going on. So I wanted to make sure that he was going to be okay. If you don't have that, either A, you might want to think about it just a little bit longer, staying in that job, or make sure you've got access to credit. I mean, all kinds of entrepreneurs have been extremely successful going on credit cards and lines of credit and everything. I would make sure that A, you've got a line of credit you can access, some type of home equity loan if you absolutely have to. Credit cards, in my opinion, are the last resort, but make sure you've got 6 to 12 months of savings if you have that availability. I would really advise going down that road if you can go with that savings piece. The next thing we talked about was retirement. We talked about what his retirement funds. He's got a 401k sitting in that job. You know, what do we do with it? Do we leave it where it is? Do we move it to an IRA? Or do we start some type of retirement plan through his business? I'm a big fan, if you've listened to any of my stuff before, of the solo 401k. I just like all the flexibility and the ability to do a loan if you need to. I like those flexibilities with that. But then we had to discuss, what are we going to do with his retirement money? I personally started my firm August 1st of 2008 and had savings, had everything there. Long story short, the market dropped like crazy. I had to go and use part of my retirement funds to basically keep my business afloat. It's not the greatest decision ever, but it was the decision I had to make sure that my family was taken care of. So know that it's available. Try not to touch it if you can. Next piece is risk management. We had to take a look at his risk management piece. He was leaving company benefits. What does he have for health insurance? Does his wife have the ability to cover the insurance, or do they need to look at health insurance for the family? And then what are the costs that are going to come into that? Do we need to go down the road and open up a new plan? Do we need to go COBRA? And then what are the costs associated with that? The next piece we then dug into was his life insurance. Needed to make sure that his family was taken care of in the event that something did happen to him in this transition or in that time period, and then allocate costs to that as well, which then both of those things flowed right back down into those expenses from his cash flow piece, and you'll have the ability to add that into that guide that I put together. We also discussed disability income insurance. Disability income insurance is one of those things that you get through your employer, but then when you go out on your own and you're starting your own company, the disability income insurance companies aren't too excited about putting insurance on you when you're self-employed and don't have at least 2 years of tax returns to back it up. So that's one of those policies that doesn't generally follow you, but it's one of those things that becomes really important that a lot of solopreneurs have a tendency to skip over. Lloyd and I started talking about taxes. It's one of those things we don't like paying, we don't like doing, but we needed to make sure we had a discussion of taxes, because now the taxes are going to be a little different. Now, if you've been running a side hustle for a while and you've been doing good, you understand there comes self-employment taxes and the value then that comes into play of having a good quality tax advisor, whether it's a tax professional, a CPA. One of the things that I tell all my clients, and I told Lloyd, was go to the bank when you leave my office and go get yourself set up a separate tax account. So it's an account that you, when it's time to start bringing in revenues, you start setting money aside to cover for those taxes, which is really important. My wife and I have been doing that for many, many years, ever since I started out self-employed at 23 years of age. We always had a separate tax account to make sure we didn't have any issues there. The next thing that we took a look at was then the legal piece. The legal piece is, how do we want to set this company up? I mean, right now it's been a sole proprietorship. This kind of a lot of pretty normal with side hustles. But do we need to take a look at forming an LLC? Do we need to look at an S corporation? Do we just do what's called a doing business as? Does your state require some type of doing business as? And the other thing is that we got to make sure that we discussed, Lloyd and I sat down, we went through that and discussed S corps, LLCs, doing business as, and then the tax benefits that come from each of those. That's something that you'll see future podcasts as well as future videos on, helping you understand which one might be right for you, and then the tax benefits and other things that come as a result of it. But the other piece for legal, and unfortunately most people don't have this, is a will. You need to make sure you have your last will and your powers of attorney, last will and testament, it's technically called, and your powers of attorney in place to make sure that if something does happen, you know where your stuff is going to go, as well as if you are incapacitated. Maybe you're in for a major medical procedure and you are on a ventilator for the next 30-some days as a result of the COVID-19 stuff. You need someone to be able to act in your behalf, and that's where the powers of attorney come into play. Extremely important things. I also have future videos as well as podcasts coming discussing those as well. The seventh thing that you're going to want to make sure you have is make sure you have a support system in place. Find some mentors. Find some other people who do what you do, who are already successful. Maybe they're 2 steps, 3 steps ahead of you. Reach out to them. Build a relationship. Ask them, hey, what would you have done differently? Find those mentors that are going to help bring you along. Like I said, I created a guide for this stuff to help you go through it. But the things you want to be thinking about is your cash flow. You want to be thinking about your savings. You want to be thinking about your retirement. Think about your risk management, your taxes, your legal structure, as well as your last will, and then find that mentor. I hope this was helpful. You can always go check me out at GabeNelsonFinancial.com. You can request a consultation if you like, and even please check out my podcast, the Solopreneur Money Podcast. Thanks. Have a great day.